Welcome and welcome back to the OK Grognard Show. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. We're going to talk a bit about Dave Arneson Day. Dave Arneson, one of the co-creators of Dungeons & Dragons, and Blackmoor. Yesterday was October 1st, of course, and that in 1947 was Dave Arneson's birthday, and so we recognize October 1st as Dave Arneson Day. Lots of celebrations. Some people call it Dave Arneson Game Day because they want to encourage gaming, and it's a great idea. And I swung by the game store yesterday, but that's kind of a cheat because I help work at a game store, and that's easy for me to do, right? Some folks gotta pack it all up and carry all their stuff and go to a place where they can game, and that can take a little bit of effort, a little more than I just put in yesterday. But I didn't actually game. I did roll some dice, so hopefully that counts. Dave Arneson, really the creative mind behind taking what Dave Wesley had sort of put together for a resolution system for wargaming, which included people taking on roles as leaders of various factions. In Brownstein, I'll never pronounce that right. Maybe I did just there. There's like 12 different ways. I used to pronounce it Bronstein, or Braunstein, or Brownstein, or Brownstein. And I'll never get it right. So what I need to do is hear Dave say it. Dave Wesley. Every time before I need to pronounce it, and then I will always pronounce it right. The retired colonel is a heck of a great guy. And hopefully he'll be enjoying himself up in Minnesota this weekend. I believe they're having a ArnCon convention, and I believe he's a featured guest, and deservedly so. But Dave took everything and put it all together and made it into the focus of the game. And sent those, well, he played it a bunch and then demonstrated it to Gary, sent him the rules such as they were. Gary put it all together, expanded upon it, and got it together for publication. And the two of them did their thing for Dungeons & Dragons. And then, as the second supplement to the game, he focused a bit on, and they called it Blackmoor, just like they called the first supplement Greyhawk, which was Gary's campaign name, campaign setting. But quite honestly, there was not a lot. Do I want to switch over to that yet? Nah, not yet. There was not a lot there as far as, I guess we could do this. As far as actual campaign setting stuff in Greyhawk. However, there is an adventure inside this book called The Temple of the Frog, which is actually a Dave Arneson thing. So it is setting specific in that regard. I don't want to lean too far in front of everything here. Illustrations, Dave Sutherland, Mike Bell, Tracy Lesh. Edited by Tim Kask. dedicated to you, Cantrell. Dave Arneson and Blackmoor. We're going to get back and discuss this forward before we're done. 4 years ago, Martin Thomas did a post on his website, his Daddy Roller One website, talking about Arneson and how he caught up with the idea that Arneson was one of the founders of the game later in life. And he pointed out that the Umber Hulk, they have some good monsters in here. You know what they do? They have assassins and monks, neither of which I actually like using in games, and tried them out. Never cared for them. I mean as a DM, not just as a player, but both. And then they have this hit location during melee. This other whole system for how to be specific about where you strike when you're fighting, which is something I never used. It was already too fiddly, especially once it got into first edition. Although I understand some people incorporated that sort of detail into their game, and more power to them if they could make it work. It just felt like a slog to me. Monsters. Everybody loves more monsters. A lot of underwater monsters in here. And of course that becomes apparent. Not those hellhounds, of course, which are nasty. But other creatures in here are definitely underwater creatures. And that's because Temple of the Frog has a large underwater thing. Obviously, giant frogs makes sense. Sagwin, if I'm saying that correctly. I always don't do a lot of underwater stuff. New magic and treasure. Ring of Freedom, Ring of Movement, Clearwater Potion, Manta Ray Cloak, Necklace of Water Breathing, Trident of Fish Control. You get the picture. There are a number of underwater. Temple of a Frog being right on the water. There's a Mind Flayer and a Roper. Great monsters. There's Temple of the Frog. Above, High Priest, the hierarchy of the rings that they possess. Underneath, multiple levels. Nice dwarf picture. Somebody's sneaking around the corner. Underwater encounter matrix for rolling up randos. Underwater advice for underwater adventures rather. Got a whole setup there, so they tell you all about that. Oh, and there's a whole section on disease. That's a pretty good section, which, winds up in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So, sections for notes, good old Chimera. Anyway, it's a sweet little supplement with a lot of stuff for a lot of people. Maybe not for everyone, but what the heck? It doesn't mean you can't use parts of it. Hey, let's talk about that introduction. We won't get much past this. We don't want to push the time too much, but we do want to be able to say that we looked at this, because when they pointed this out, it was pointed out that, oops, where do we want to get rid of that? Yep, not there. All right, now we're there. Everyone see that. This is the intro, the forward, actually, by Gary Gygax in Dave Arneson's Blackmoor. Caution! This is the second supplement to the highly addictive game Dungeons & Dragons. Handle it at your own risk. Even a brief perusal can infect the reader with the desire to do heroic deeds, cast mighty magical spells, and seek to wrest treasure from hideous monsters. The most insidious factor, however, is the secondary nature of this work. Any reader who becomes infected from this work will immediately develop a craving for the other parts, i.e. Dungeons & Dragons, Greyhawk, Chainmail, polyhedral dice, and various and sundry other items. Anyone so completely exposed will certainly be hopelessly lost. In short, if you're not already an addict of fantasy adventure, put this book down quickly and flee. Well, he's using the first part of the foreword to sell more Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and good on him, because if somebody picked this up out of nowhere, they'd need that information, and having it right up front, very useful. He goes on, as with the first supplement, the material herein is arranged to follow the format of Dungeons & Dragons, with corrections, addition, new rules, and so forth being shown so players will be able to distinguish material at a glance. All of it is, of course, optional, for the premise of the whole game system is flexibility and personalization within the broad framework of the rules. Blackmoor also contains some interesting and amusing information regarding the actual campaign of that name. It is the oldest and longest-running Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and readers should find such material quite helpful in assuring the longevity of their own campaigns. He continues now to praise Arneson in a way that really never happens after this because of their tensions and the legal issues that arose. But this is an unfiltered Gary who is gung-ho about Dungeons and Dragons now. He loved it when he had it run for him. He loved what the game was and how it and all the things he envisioned that could be done with it. And he says, Dave Arneson, is there really such a creature? Yes, gentle readers, there is, and shudder when the name is spoken. Although he is a man of many talents who has authored many historic rule sets and games which TSR will be publishing periodically, Dave is also the innovator of the dungeon adventure concept, creator of ghastly monsters and inscrutable dungeon master par excellence. He devises complex combat systems, inexplicable dungeon and wilderness areas, and traps of the most subtle fiendishness. Herein you will get a taste of these, but he never reveals all. This writer always looks forward with great anticipation to an adventure in the Blackmoor campaign, for despite the fact that I co-authored the original work with Dave and have spent hundreds of hours creating and playing Dungeons & Dragons, it is always a fresh challenge to enter his world. I cannot recommend him more highly than simply saying that I would rather play in his campaign than any other, that other dungeon masters who emulate Dave Arneson will indeed improve their games. While eagerly anticipating yet more material from the dread Blackmoor Castle, the following pages should satisfy your immediate craving for new ideas. Those of you totally committed to the fantasy adventure game may expect additional supplements from time to time, and isn't that dark shape crouched over the desk of Black and Oak laughing fiendishly as glowing runes flow from his quill, remarkably similar to Arneson's? There you go. I'll tell you what, you've got to admit, he really loved Dave. And I'll tell you what, on Dave Arneson Day, I'm not sure anybody could say anything about Dave that was more glowing than that right there. So take that. Those of you who think Gary and Dave didn't have at least a moment in the sun together, that there's some competition that jumped up right out of the gate, never to reveal any time when the two of them were simpatico, because that forward to Blackmoor right there, I think, tells it all. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll say happy belated Dave Arneson Day to those of you who didn't get a chance. And hey, you know what? Let's not be stingy. It fell on a Tuesday this year. Why don't we say that Dave Arneson Week runs through this weekend? Get some gaming in Honor Dave with a little bit of that. And have some fun while you're at it, because that's what it's all about. Thanks a lot, everybody. This has been the OK Grognard Show, talking about Dave Arneson Day, October 1st. That was yesterday. And his Blackmoor supplement from Original Dungeons & Dragons. The show streams live on Twitch each Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central, and it's archived on YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, click the thumbs up, subscribe, all of that other cool stuff. It would be very much appreciated. Thanks to our Patreon supporters. Links provided in the show notes. Tom Tellis of Fat Dragon Games, Color Slicing of Castle Entertainment, Heath Farndon of the Antipa D&D 20, Dave O'Brien, Heidi and Eric Gygax Garland. I've got to get the K put into Eric's first name. It's not spelled with a C. I apologize, Eric. Vince Ragusa, a.k.a. the Vince himself, Unauthorized User. And as always, Shane Bradley, DM Extraordinaire. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.